Just visit the new CalgaryHerald.com with more of everything worth knowing.
Most Albertans will be disappointed to know that politics in our province has evolved into a process that is almost completely undemocratic. Not only are there rarely free votes in the legislature, there are very few free votes in caucus. Virtually all legislation is created and developed by various unelected government appointees with direction from the Premier and a small cadre of ministers whose distinguishing attribute is unconditional allegiance to their leader. All other elected MLAs generally have little, if any, real input into the decisions that impact the lives of their constituents. Final government decisions are highly influenced by the Premier's Chief of Staff. This unelected government appointee is now paid more than the Premier, nearly $400,000 a year, and has effectively been given the power to override the views of the elected caucus. As a result, Albertans essentially have governance by bureaucratic fiat rather than by the people's democratically elected representatives. Predictably, this undemocratic system has resulted in policies that are contrary to the small c conservative sensibilities of most Albertans. From massive royalty hikes on our energy entrepreneurs, to awarding untendered transmission line contracts worth billions of dollars, to the return to deficit financing, to failing to protect the rights of free speech of our citizens, to behind closed-door salary increases, to the highly questionable $2 billion carbon capture and storage experiment, and I could go on. The advice and words of warning from many caucus MLAs has been largely ignored and dismissed, and extremely poor policy decisions have resulted. Equally disturbing is that the Premier and his inner circle consider it a serious offense if elected MLAs speak up publicly for their constituents. By way of example, Guy Boudelier, a former cabinet minister, was ejected from caucus for simply speaking up on behalf of his most vulnerable constituents. In response to publicly suggesting the need for improved fiscal responsibility, I and some of the other so-called Fiscal Seven had our positions within the government threatened. Even behind closed doors, MLAs who contradict the Chief of Staff, the Premier, or a prominent minister are often derided, shouted down, and threatened with having their political careers limited in some fashion. Simply put, our system of governance has become entirely dysfunctional, and it is not something that I can continue to be a part of.
My priority has always been to represent my constituents and Albertans and to bring their views forward. But under Premier Stelmach, this government has lost its way. And to watch what has happened is nothing more than wrong, and I simply could not stand by and be silent anymore. These are the questions that the constituents of Calgary Fish Creek are asking me. How does one manage in less than 50 days to destroy the economic engine of our province and Canada, the oil and gas industry, with the flawed royalty review? How does one manage to be so mean-spirited and go after those who are helpless by taking away basic human necessities just to save $70,000, a decision that has now been overturned because of public outrage? How does one manage to muzzle healthcare providers for speaking out about the problems in the system? How does one manage to stand by and watch as funding cuts are made to programs that help persons with developmental disabilities? How does one overturn a law that prevents deficits in this problem after all the hard work that was done by Albertans to have strong fiscal footing? How does one expel someone out of caucus for simply speaking out on behalf of the seniors in his constituency? I could go on, but these recent actions give you a glimpse into what I have had to wrestle with, not only as the representative of the people of Calgary Fish Creek, but also as a previous member to the government. It is because of this direction that this government has taken that I have made the decision to join with Danielle and the Wildrose Alliance. Quite simply, it is time to do the right thing on behalf of the constituents, on behalf of my constituents and Albertans.